Dear friends, someone recently sent me an email through the deepakchopra.com WhatsApp, and she had a question that I have been carrying for weeks. If awakening is real, she asked, and awareness is what we fundamentally are, then does the world get better? Does the movie stop? Does the hard stuff dissolve? Or is enlightenment just a very expensive way of feeling the same disappointments more elegantly? Her question is not naive, it is very precise. And the honest answer, the answer that traditions give when you stop asking them to flatter you, is that the movie continues. The traffic still stands. The knees still ache. The manuscript still refuses its final paragraph. What changes is not the film. What changes is the one watching it. And that change, small as it sounds, upgrades everything. Most spiritual seeking is powered by a hidden clause: if I wake up, the difficulty will end. It is a beautiful clause, and it is wrong. Every tradition worth its salt has tried to disabuse us of it, and every generation of seekers has quietly reinstalled it under a new name: enlightenment, ascension, liberation, healing, arrival. But moksha is not evacuation. Pratyabhijna is not exit. Awakening is not the end of appearances. It is the recognition of what was never bound by appearances in the first place. The dreamscape, this very vivid, insistent, embodied show that includes your body and mind, it continues. What ends, and this is the whole matter, is the mistaken conviction that awareness is one of the characters inside it. That single correction, once made and then made again 1,000 times, upgrades the whole system. Not because reality has been rewritten, but because the misplacement of identity has been noticed. To be an unawakened human is to be a field of awareness that has forgotten itself into a small, defended shape. Patanjali gives this moment a name: Asmita, I am thisness, that first contraction. It is not that the world produces suffering and awareness receives it. It is that awareness, forgetting its own vastness, contracts into a point and then experiences the resulting awareness as the field, the contracted self as the field. This is why sages across every lineage report the same strange fact. After recognition, the same content is metabolized differently. The rain is the same rain. The grief is the same grief. But the field in which they arise has remembered itself. And a rain falling into an infinite sky is very different from a rain falling on a small, cornered self. What the traditions call Jivan Mukti, liberation, while still embodied, is precisely this. The dreamer wakes to itself and keeps dreaming. Ramana Maharshi did not vanish when he recognized what he was. He continued to sit on his couch, receive visitors, tend to his mother, and eventually die of sarcoma. When the pain was terrible near the end and devotees wept that he was leaving them, he said, "They say I'm going, but where would I go?" The movie was still running. The tumor was a real experience. The body was doing what bodies do, but the screen had recognized itself as the screen. The one who had been called Ramana was not going anywhere because the awareness that had briefly worn that name was already always the field in which every going and coming appeared. This is what an upgraded dreamscape looks like from the inside. Not a better movie, the same movie watched by awareness that has stopped mistaking itself for a character. I want to be careful here because the traditions can be misread as promising a kind of spiritual anesthesia. And that is not what is being offered. Recognition does not numb the film. It changes 6 specific things about how the film is metabolized. And each of them is verifiable in your own experience if you're willing to look. Let's go over them. Reactivity shortens its half-life. Emotions still arise, sharp ones, honest ones, but they no longer need a defended self to land on. They pass through the field the way weather passes through the sky. The storm is not smaller. The sky has been recognized as sky. Number 2, narration loses its compulsion. The conditioned mind keeps generating story. This is what minds do, and there is nothing wrong with it. But the story is now seen as story. You can use it, love it, teach with it without being used by it. 3, certainty relocates. Ordinary life demands certainty about outcomes and cannot deliver it, which is why anxiety is the ambient weather of modernity. Awakening moves certainty from what will happen to what is aware. You do not know what tomorrow will bring. You know without any doubt at all the awareness in which tomorrow will appear. That is a different kind of ground, and it does not crumble. 4, death loses its ontological weight. If awareness is not produced by the body's ending is not awareness's ending. This is not a belief to install. It is a recognition that becomes obvious when the identification with the character loosens even slightly. The final chapter is still walked. I'm walking it now. But it is walked as awareness metabolizing time, not as a self racing a clock. The next one is that creativity flows more freely. I experience that, or the awareness in which this exists experiences that. When the I is no longer a bottleneck defending its territory, the field's own creative impulse, what Khem Raja calls spanda, the primordial vibration, moves through with less resistance. Essays arise the way breath arises, at least for me. Not from effort, from a vehicle that has become transparent. And finally, others are recognized as the same field. This is the most consequential upgrade and the hardest to fake. When separateness is seen as a construction within awareness, compassion is not a moral achievement. It's a structural inevitability. Compassion for all, saint and sinner, criminal, the prophet or the divine or the diabolical, all are part of the self. You cannot harm what you have recognized as yourself. Contemporary neuroscience has begun to describe some of this in its own austere vocabulary. Long-term meditators show reduced amygdala reactivity, faster return to baseline after stressors, quieter default mode network activity, and a molecular signature of an organism that has stopped burning itself in defense of a self that was never quite real. I've written about these findings before and will write about them again because they matter. But I want to be exact about what they show and what they do not. Neuroscience verifies consequences within the conventional subject-object frame. It measures brains and behaviors, and it does this well. It does not and cannot verify the ontological claim at the heart of non-dual recognition, which is that consciousness is not produced by the brain in the first place. The brain does not think, feel, remember, or awaken. Awareness does. And the brain appears within awareness as one of the many patterned expressions of it. The neural data is real. What it points to is more radical than the frame in which it is measured. Science is a helpful friend on the path. It is not the ground the path is standing on. One last honesty. Recognition is instantaneous. Stabilization is the work of a life. Shankara distinguished jnana, the flash of recognition, from nishta, the settling of that recognition into every cell and every situation. Kashmir Shaivism made the same distinction with different vocabularies. Pratyabhijna followed by avesha, recognition followed by saturation. That is why the awakened continue to practice, not because awakening is incomplete, but because the vehicle through which it expresses itself continues to refine. So the daily asana still happens. In this case too, the meditation cushion still gets sat on every day. The morning offering still gets written, not to achieve awakening, but to let awakening finish arriving in the tissues. The dreamscape does not have to end for you to be free. It was never the problem. The forgetting was the problem. And forgetting one scene cannot survive being seen. The movie continues. The characters continue. But the one watching, the light in which all of it appears, was never inside the movie in the first place. That was always the discovery. Wake then inside the dream. Notice the noticing. When the next contraction comes, and it will, ask quietly, who is aware of this? And do not answer. Let the silence that was already there be the answer. The dreamscape continues, and it becomes, without any effort at all, kinder to walk through, because the one walking has remembered it was never walking. It was all along the ground the walking was happening on. That is moksha. That is pratyabhijna. That is the upgrade, hidden as it always was in plain sight. Tattvamasi. Aham Brahmasmi.